I'm live tonight with @SoRealSuneil. Suneil, thank you so much for joining me on the Faithful Fanatic podcast. Suneil is one of the newest writers at All 49ers Sports Illustrated. Suneil, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks, Nick, for even inviting me on. I've been a big fan of you, and I've been watching those roundtables and, was excited to be a part of one last week. But, yeah, just a little bit about me. I live in LA right now, but I've been a 49er diehard ever since, I was growing up watching football. I guess you could say I was raised right. My favorite quarterback was Steve Young, and I loved the way he played, and it was just easy to be a fan of the team growing up. And then, once I started, paying attention and obviously like seeing you and Grant and you guys kind of, making your niche on YouTube, I was able to get involved, and, now I'm here on your podcast, man. So life is good.
Life is good, and I like how you touched on being able to watch Steve Young, because Steve Young, of course, I'm familiar with all the highlights of Steve Young and how involved he is with ESPN and everything, but I never got to watch Steve Young. I came a little after that, so I'm more familiar with the Jeff Garcias and Alex Smith and everything in between. So We're going to be talking a lot of quarterbacks, talking a lot about quarterbacks, and the 49ers have not had a quarterback of the talent of Steve Young in my entire lifetime. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. And let's just kick things off by talking about the first two picks in the draft. And now, the consensus is that Trevor Lawrence is going to go first overall to the Jaguars, and following him right up next is Zach Wilson after the Jets traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers. Is that how you see the first two picks going in the draft, that it's going to go Lawrence 1 and then Zach Wilson number 2?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely Lawrence 1. I think that has been kind of the consensus number 1 pick since last year. So I don't really see any changes there. I think Urban Meyer went to Jacksonville, especially knowing that was going to be his quarterback. The second pick, I agree. I think it's going to be Zach Wilson. Once again, my guy Steve Young, I think he's tapped into two teams really well. I think he does really well. Obviously, what the 49ers are going to do. Another school is going to be BYU, where he went to college. And, he came out with the report basically saying that the Jets have been courting Zach Wilson's family and things like that. So I do believe that that's the number 2 pick. I don't know if I really agree with it for them, because I just kind of feel like Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold are extremely similar. I don't know if bringing in Zach Wilson, how that necessarily changes what the Jets are going to be able to do, because the team around him is more of the problem than I think the actual quarterback. So, but I do think that that's going to be the 1 and 2 pick.
Yeah, but even before Sam Darnold got traded, I saw a rumor that Zach Wilson was in the process of buying a house by the Jets facility. I don't know if that's true or not, but all signs are pointing to Zach Wilson going second overall. And I share a similar stance with you as far as, is Wilson the right pick second overall? And before the Jets even traded Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson was in play, potentially for the 3rd overall pick, there's always been questions. Will someone move up to 2? Will the Jets take Zach Wilson at 2? And the more I really sat down and thought about Zach Wilson versus Justin Fields versus Trey Lance, is Zach Wilson's stature kind of concerns me in the long run. You know what I'm talking about? Because with this 3rd overall pick, you're not drafting for the immediate upcoming season. You are in a sense, but you're drafting for the long term. You're trying to find a franchise quarterback to hold down your organization for the next 10 plus years. And when I really thought about that more, if a situation were to unfold where both Zach Wilson and Justin Fields were available at 3, I'd kind of prefer Justin Fields, just because I feel like his body is built for the NFL and he's going to have a better 10 plus year career. Just looking at how the two are built and how Zach Wilson loves to run around, he really exposes his body while doing that. And Justin Fields, he's a big physical dude. So that's why I kind of agree with you in the sense, is this the best pick for the Jets? Maybe not. It's definitely the consensus pick. Everybody sees Zach Wilson going there. But when you think about it, who's going to have the best career 10, 15 years down the road? I have more confidence in Fields just because of the way he's built. We'll get into all that. We have a couple topic areas, but first I'd like to ask you, how seriously are you taking the Mac Jones rumors? The national media thinks they have this, a lot of members. I shouldn't just generalize the national media like that, but there are a ton of people, Adam Schefter, Matt Miller, that are locked in, gung-ho. This is what's going on. With the third overall pick, Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers are locked into Mac Jones. Are you buying that?
No, I think that the Mac Jones, I think this all goes back to one of the most like overused, I think, stereotypes that Kyle Shanahan has had. And I think it goes back to this whole like Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan type of thing that like people say Shanahan really looks for in a quarterback. But I think it lacks perspective, that thought process, because really when we talk about Shanahan, when he really had the chance to really pick a quarterback or need a quarterback and have the opportunity to pick a quarterback, was that 2017, his first year coaching and drafting with the 49ers. And at that time, obviously he was looking for Kirk Cousins, which is why, he passed on drafting a quarterback in the first round. He ended up drafting Solomon Thomas, moving up for Reuben Foster. Total trash draft for our 49ers and a bad first look. But I think that decision-making there is what keeps people thinking that, Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan and now Mac Jones fitting that mold is what he's looking for. I just think that that's a really lazy argument. And the reason why I think that is people don't take into perspective like what the league was then, right? And I kind of look back into the two drafts before that. So in 2015, I don't know if you remember, Nick, who was the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks to go in the draft?
2015?
Yeah.
That was before Goff and Wentz, right?
Correct. It was Jameis Winston was number 1.
Yep.
Winston was number 1. Mariota was number 2. Exactly. Yep. So Mariota was like the more mobile quarterback, right? And already by year 2, right? So that was 2015. Already by year 2 and 3, he was already kind of flaming out as a starting quarterback for the Titans. And, that whole mobile quarterback was like, this doesn't work. You need a pocket passer, right? And, even Jameis Winston, he wasn't the like Greek god body. Like he was kind of chubby, but he was more of a pocket passer, strong arm, right? Then the year after that, 2016, it was Goff, it was Wentz, right? Wentz, I think, is more of an athlete than Goff, but both of them were more known for being like a pocket passer and more known for their strength and arm and stuff like that. So then you go into 2017, right? So just seeing where the trend is and where all the best quarterbacks is, there hasn't been a dominant mobile quarterback other than maybe Michael Vick at the time. So to think that Kyle Shanahan was some like person on an island thinking that a pocket quarterback presence was more important than like an athlete at quarterback, wasn't that like strange? Because think about it, in 2017, the best quarterbacks obviously were Mahomes and Watson, but they were still drafted, later than, the Mitch Trubisky and these guys. And then they didn't even really show out in 2017. Mahomes was still on the bench. 2018, the best quarterbacks ended up being, I guess, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. 2018 or 2019 is when Kyler Murray was a hands down favorite, and then last year I would say maybe Justin Herbert, more of the athlete, is probably going to be the best quarterback. So it's a trend that just started. So we're talking 2017 to 2021 to act like Kyle Shanahan hasn't seen how the game has evolved, and him being an offensive genius wouldn't start realizing that an athletic mobile quarterback is actually a weapon and something that would enhance his offense. I think it's just a lazy argument, and I don't think he's really said anything for anybody to think that he's still like, no, I don't want an athlete at quarterback. I just want a pocket passer.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like,
No, you laid everything out extremely fair, in my opinion. And, I've been critical of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in the past for not taking a quarterback in 2017, not to beat a dead horse here. But, I mean, the guy's plan was to bring in Brian Hoyer and have him be a bridge gap quarterback for a year, so to speak, so you can eventually land Kirk Cousins. And that was his master plan. It didn't work out. We all know how the story ends. Patrick Mahomes is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the NFL right now and is going to be the best quarterback in the NFL for the foreseeable future. And I haven't really thought of it through the same lens that you just broke down, where that really wasn't the game at the time. There weren't all these successful quarterbacks that were able to make plays out of the pocket and just run around and scramble like what we see out of Patrick Mahomes. So thank you for bringing that up, honestly, because it kind of provides another perspective just to kind of reconsider how I feel about Shanahan passing on those quarterbacks in 2017. But I think you're right. The game has evolved, and that's why I'm personally going to be concerned with Kyle Shanahan moving forward if the 49ers select Mac Jones and they go with the classic drop back passer who can't really make plays out of the pocket, and he's physically limited. He's not going to be able to extend plays and do the wow type things that we see from quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. Like, I'm sure guys like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance will be able to do, Trevor Lawrence in the upcoming future. So that's definitely interesting. And, I just don't see how you trade all that draft capital, giving up the 2 first-round picks, essentially, because remember, you traded 3 first-round picks, but you also got 1 back because you swapped 12 for 3 and then gave 2 on top of that. So you gave 2 first-round picks up, essentially, with the second, third-round compensation that comes on down the road, and you don't give that up for Mac Jones.
Jones, I mean, I think – I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, but what I was saying is I think that also is kind of like an argument. It's like you don't move up that way for necessarily like Mac Jones. You move up for the quarterback that you think is going to be your guy, right? So you move up to that level to be able to dictate your future versus having to navigate through. You want to get rid of as many variables as possible. So whether it was, whether you get Mac Jones at 6 and give up 1, first round pick or whatever it is, if Mac Jones ends up being the guy, then it doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, you move up to 3 so that you get the best opportunity to get the person that you're picking. So I think that people kind of are like, well, the opposite of that argument is, well, if you pick Mac Jones at 12, then, it would have been better. But the reality is, if Mac Jones ends up being trash, it doesn't matter if you picked him at 3 or you picked him at 12. You're still going to have the same arguments as far as like you picked the wrong guy, right? So I think that we got to give Shanahan a little more credit, because think about it. 2 of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league, he faces 4 times a year. Yep. And the only quarterbacks he's had trouble with in the NFC West, like, he's never had a problem with Goff. He's been able to solve that riddle no matter like what the team is, no matter what their ranking is, whether they're Super Bowl bound or 12 pick bound. They beat the Rams with Jared Goff like hands down. It hasn't been close. The only quarterbacks that he's had issues with are Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, and only then, not because of what they do in the pocket, because of what they've done when they've broken containment. So for him to be able to see that firsthand and be like, we could be perfect and have the perfect defense set for this guy, but because they're an athlete, they're able to do things that we can't anticipate. I think we have to give Shanahan credit enough to be like, look, he realizes how much that could be a weapon, and he's a smart enough guy to be able to be like, look, I'm not going to pass up on these opportunities like more than once, right? 2017, he passed up on it. I don't really think he passed up on it. I think he just wasn't on the forefront like Andy Reid, right? But I mean, I think that he's looking for somebody that could play the role in the pocket as well as be the athlete.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a 2-part question here, and to kind of differentiate the 2 questions that I'm asking you. It's, what do you think the 49ers will do with the 3rd overall pick in terms of which quarterback they're going to be selecting? And the second question that kind of coincides with that is, what should they do in your opinion? So if there's a discrepancy between the two, maybe what you think they're going to do is exactly what you think they should do. But if they kind of differentiate it all, go ahead into detail there.
Sure. So I think, one of the things, the last roundtable we did last week, the article or the story came out as far as like where that Lynch and Shanahan weren't on the same page as far as quarterback options. And I think most people said like maybe Mac Jones was who Lynch wanted or something like that. I said that I think Trey Lance is who Lynch wants, because I think Lynch is more high on keeping Garoppolo around for another year, have Trey Lance sit, because he's probably not going to be as ready as, a Justin Fields, Mac Jones, or Zach Wilson, because he hasn't played that much in college. So I think he likes that idea of maybe sitting Lance and starting Garoppolo more than Shanahan. I think Shanahan's ready to rip the Band-Aid off and is like, I need a quarterback that I can trust is going to play 16 games or 17 games now and be able to run my offense. And I think Shanahan is probably more inclined to Justin Fields. As far as what I believe they should do, assuming that Wilson goes to the Jets, I think that they should pick Fields. And the reason for that is because I think some of the characteristics that Shanahan talks about as far as toughness and leadership are two of the things that Justin Fields has in spades. And then his ability to extend plays and be able to pick up first downs with his feet and have that extra weapon, I think is going to be extremely important. And I think Kyle Shanahan can do a lot with that. He's a very accurate quarterback, in college through 70% completion rate pretty much his last 2 years or his 2 years starting. And I think he's just the type of athlete and has enough of what the Shanahan needs to be able to watch his offense really explode. So that's what I think he should do. I think that's what he wants to do. Whether or not that's what they do is who really makes that final decision, whether that be Lynch, whether that be Shanahan.
Yeah. I definitely think it's Kyle Shanahan that's going to have the final say in which quarterback the team's going to select, because just going back to last offseason when Kyle Shanahan got his extension was made before John Lynch. So, this is all speculation, but Kyle Shanahan wears the pants in the John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan relationship. This is Kyle's team. This is Kyle's offense. Everything is focused around Kyle Shanahan. That John Lynch is just kind of the face. And that's something that I really like. He's the buffer in between Jed York and Kyle Shanahan. And I really do like John Lynch as a spokesperson. Depending who you talk to, there's people that say Adam Peters is more of the actual general manager as far as being able to scout and evaluate talent opposed to John Lynch. But I've always really, really liked John Lynch as the face of the franchise, not so much because he's a high profile guy like Kyle Shanahan and, any of the players or anything like that, but just really being that voice of reason and a guy who represents the franchise well. Going from Trent Baalke to John Lynch has always been refreshing to me, just because of how transparent both and Kyle Shanahan are. But I really enjoy listening to John Lynch talk. He's just a well-educated, well-spoken dude. And I want to give Atkins a shout out here. He liked your John Lynch theory here about how John Lynch likes Trey Lance and how that's why he may be wanting to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, or that's why he does want to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. And, my stance on this, I really don't think Mac Jones is in the question. I really hope that Kyle Shanahan's not that foolish to trade all that draft capital for a quarterback that is physically limited, more along the likes of a Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins than Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, or these quarterbacks that are able to extend plays and make plays outside of the pocket. So what will they do? I think they're going to have to narrow it down between Trey Lance and Justin Fields, and what I think they ultimately do end up deciding on is going the Justin Fields route.
So we're on the same page there. I think that's the right pick.
Yeah, they both of them offer so much more in comparison to Mac Jones, and maybe they're holding their cards super tight. And I want to give Greg Papa, I was listening to him on KMBR earlier today, the Sports Talk radio show up here. And they were bringing up the point how technically, you know, the first 2 picks are going to be Lawrence and Wilson, right? So you can kind of make it known who you want to select, but when you make it known who you want to select, it kind of limits your options, because we've seen the 49ers do these very subtle trade down moves in the past. 2017, for example, they just dropped down 1 slot so the Bears can move up for Trubisky, and they drafted Solomon Thomas, but they gained good draft capital off of that. And they did the same thing this past year with Tristan Wirfs, went to the Buccaneers. They moved down a spot, and then he selected Javon Kinlaw. So if they're in love with Mac Jones, which I really, fingers crossed, hope that they are not, maybe there's a scenario where they want to just drop down to 4 or 5. Maybe the Bengals come up to 3 to draft Penei Sewell because they need that offensive line help, and they pick up a draft pick. They move to 5 and select Mac Jones there. I feel more comfortable with that, but I just really hope Mac Jones is not in the equation whatsoever, because you see where the NFL is trending. Look at the NFC, for example, the 4 teams that were represented in the NFC Championship round, the old head pocket passers. You have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and who is the 4th one that I'm blanking on? Oh, no, on the NFC side.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Russell. Goff.
In the NFC Championship game, was it Goff? Or did they make?
The Final Four was Goff.
Okay. It could be. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I know that you had those 3 pocket. It could have been Goff. I know that they beat the Seahawks in the wild card round, but I don't think what? Oh my gosh! Do we have? Nope, nothing here in the comment section helping us out. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I think it was Goff, Rodgers, then Brady, and then who was the 4th one? Who was the 4th quarterback you said?
I said the exact same 3 that you said. Oh. Let's see if we got anyway, and then you look at the AFC, and you had guys like Patrick Mahomes and the more mobile quarterbacks there. So, you know, I definitely want Kyle Shanahan to go that direction and just have a quarterback that can extend plays and make throws at all levels of the field. And that's what I think they will do, as well as what they should do, to answer that question. I want to talk about Mac Jones some more. And this is something that I tweeted out, and I found this poll fascinating. And this was the question that I put out to my Twitter followers. Where on this spectrum would you fall regarding Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch if they draft Mac Jones at 3? I had A, not concerned, they deserve the trust of the fan base. B, indifferent, just let things play out and see what happens with this quarterback. C, concerned, and you're kind of, second guessing the regime. D, outraged. It's immediate hot seat for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. What the hell were they thinking going after Mac Jones? Where do you stand on that spectrum if they were to select Mac Jones at 3? Concerned, indifferent, or I'm sorry, not concerned. Like, you have trust in them that they made the right decision. Indifferent, concerned, or outraged. And remember, this is immediate reaction.
Yeah, so my immediate reaction is, I guess, indifferent. And the reason for that is, no matter who they pick, if they go out and they go 1-16, I don't think it matters. Like, I think that Shanahan is going to be on the hot seat if they continue to have seasons where they underperform. And eventually you can't keep making excuses for every year why we're either like Super Bowl or we're not making the playoffs, right? We want to see that consistency where we're contending every single year. And I think whomever they pick as a rookie quarterback, we give them 2 years. And by that second year, if we're not seeing like the 49ers as a contender, a consistent playoff team, I think he's on the hot seat either way, whether he picks Wilson, Fields, or Mac Jones. Because at the end of the day, you leverage the next 2 years, right? You leverage next year's draft, first-round pick, and the year after first-round pick. And I think that's what his timeline is. If you don't figure it out by that pick, we're going to bring in a new regime who gets to pick the next first-round draft pick. And I think that's kind of how they set it up. It coincides with the rest of his contract. It also coincides with, I think, the amount of time that the 49ers will give him to figure the situation out.
Yeah, a couple of things I like to clarify before I get my little spiel on this. I completely phrased what I asked you about the 4 quarterbacks completely wrong. So what I was trying to say is the last 4 teams, and you were right, the last 4 teams that made it in the NFC, so this would be the NFC divisional round, were the Rams with Jared Goff, the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, the Buccaneers with Tom Brady, and the Saints with Drew Brees. So those are the last 4 quarterbacks, classic pocket passers that made it in the NFC, and it was completely different on the AFC side with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield. He has some athleticism to his game, and and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So I'm going to give the results to this poll that I sent out. So I had close to about 2,000 responses. So only 10.6% of people said they would not be concerned with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch selecting Mac Jones at 3 because they deserve the fan base's trust. Only 10%. 23% said they would be indifferent and they would be willing to let things play out with this rookie. We kind of have to, but their immediate reaction was just, okay, let's see how this thing goes. Let's not panic. C, for concern, 36.1% of the poll said that they would be second-guessing the regime immediately if Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch draft Mac Jones, and close to 30% say they would be outraged and they would want the regime on the hot seat immediately if they draft Mac Jones. And this is my thoughts on the matter. It's really going to accelerate the pressure, and there's not going to be a long leash with Kyle Shanahan if he drafts Mac Jones, because you're going against what the fan base wants. And, we already seen him. We talked about this earlier, but he's passed on those quarterbacks in 2017. Whether or not you want to cut him a pass for that is up to each individual that you ask. But I do think it's fair to kind of have some concerns and criticize him a little bit for electing not even to really pay attention to Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And who knows, maybe with what Deshaun Watson's going through, you got to let things play out. But if this ends up being really, really bad for him, maybe it's a blessing in disguise if the 49ers really land this superior quarterback that they didn't end up getting Deshaun Watson in the 2017 NFL draft. But I absolutely think that this is going to put a ton of pressure on Kyle Shanahan, because Mac Jones is supposed to be the plug-and-play type quarterback where his biggest pros are that he's a great quarterback in the pocket. And remember, he played with that Alabama offensive line, the best offensive line in college football. He has great anticipation, and those are things that should easily translate to the NFL level. And if you're seeing Mac Jones kind of stutter out of the gates, it's going to be, oh boy, this is not good for Kyle Shanahan. Whereas with Justin Fields and Trey Lance, this is who the fan base wants. And, there's not going to be boos at the stadium if they kind of struggle out of the gates a little bit, where I see that with Mac Jones. If Mac Jones on the first or second game of the season at Levi Stadium is having an awful day where he throws like 3 interceptions, the boo birds are going to be out. There's going to be the fan base just won't be as patient with Mac Jones opposed to Trey Lance or Justin Fields. And that's why I'm kind of in that CD range, referencing the poll that I just went over, where I'm already kind of second guessing Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch for selecting Mac Jones, because their track record with quarterbacks have not been great over the years. And
I think that the only reason for any of this speculation is just because the media has ran with this Mac Jones thing. And I really think that it's, like I said, like I laid out before, it's like that lazy argument that is going on, because the timing of this whole trade is, I think, kind of tips the hand of what the 49ers plan was, because I think they always were going to keep number 12. So there's 2 things that kind of tip me off to what kind of quarterback they're looking for. The first thing is they didn't actually pull the trigger on this trade until the Deshaun Watson news got to a point where we knew that it was going to be pretty tough for him to play next season without a bunch of drama swirling, and the 49ers tend to stay away from that, especially after what's happened in their past with quarterbacks and drama, and they don't want to be that team that all eyes are on them for the wrong reasons. So I think they were always planning on giving up 2 future picks to be able to get Deshaun. And then when they realized they can't go after Deshaun, they decided to pull the trigger and use those same 2 picks to move up in the draft. The reason why is, I don't know if you saw that article that Najee Harris just put out. saying that he thought that so he came out and said he thought he was going to the 49ers. He thought they were going to take him with the 12th pick. But before
I did see that.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, but this was all before they traded up, and he realized he's not going to them before. So, if you think about it, their mentality was, let's go get an athletic quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and let's pick our bell cow running back with Najee Harris, and think about what that offense would look like, right? Now, obviously, plans changed, unforeseen circumstances with what's going on in Deshaun's personal life. So now they had to go to plan B. So I don't know if you go from Deshaun Watson to Mac Jones. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I think you're more going towards that athletic quarterback, whether it be Wilson, whether it be Fields, whether it be Lance. I think the smokescreen was already started with Mac Jones at 12 because or maybe they just wanted to give them the option to go up to 3 because they didn't think that teams would be as aggressive. If they said Fields or they said Lance, maybe other teams are jumping up in front of Atlanta to take that number 3 pick versus them being able to get it because of Mac Jones. So I just think there's a lot of false narratives that are going on that I think the Mac Jones thing is way overplayed. And and most of the articles I'm reading now, people are kind of backing away from those predictions now that, it's like kind of situated that maybe Wilson's going 2 and then, that they don't have to do the smokescreen as much anymore.
Yeah. And one thing that you brought up about the timing of the trade after things got extremely murky with Deshaun Watson, whereas you just can't make that trade anymore. And what it tells me is that I'm sure that they were really interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. He has a reasonable cap hit this year. And then once the NFL salary cap goes up in the coming seasons, of course, Watson's cap will go up along with it. But what it tells me is that they were willing to, of course, they were willing to part with that sort of draft capital because we just seen them do it by acquiring the 3rd overall pick. And they definitely had to have been players for Deshaun Watson. I would think this is all speculation. And again, once it became clear that it was just too risky to trade for him, they moved off of him, pure speculation here, and got that 3rd overall pick. So if that was the thought process of the 49ers, there's no way in hell you take Mac Jones.
Exactly.
There's no way. So it sounds like for the most part, we are in agreement that Mac Jones, you can't go that route. It just doesn't make sense. And Kyle Shanahan, being the offensive genius, sees how the game is evolving and needs to kind of follow that trend. And it's going to be a huge ego thing for Kyle Shanahan if he drafts a classic drop back passer. And another perspective on this is, let's say if Kyle Shanahan truly strongly feels like Mac Jones is his guy, then I want him to select him 3rd overall. Like I'm not going to hate it. I'm not going to absolutely hate it. It's going to sting a little bit because you could just, from an excitement level, it's going to be a lot more exciting to see Trey Lance and Justin Fields become stars in the NFL, assuming the bust rate's extremely high. Not all these guys are going to be stars, but imagining each guy reaching their potential, it's going to translate to a lot more exciting football than what Mac Jones brings to the table.
You want to know another reason why I think Mac Jones is all hyped too?
Go ahead.
One thing the 49ers have been pretty adamant about is taking high character players because as of recently, because of obviously the problems they've had with Aldon Smith and whether or not whatever line you say on Kaepernick, obviously they were in the news for, not football reasons, let's put it that way. So Mac Jones obviously had the DUI.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they trust Alabama anymore because they drafted Reuben Foster, who had a lot of off the field issues. And then when they went to Saban gave them the thumbs up that, hey, this is not going to be a problem. And it ended up being a problem. So I don't know if they trust that the word of Saban as far as like, is this guy a problem? And if, Saban says, no, this guy's not a problem. He's a leader. He's this, he's that. I don't know if they're going to trust Saban as much, knowing that they've already gotten burned moving up for an Alabama guy that, that ended up being a waste of draft capital for that. So I think that's something that is a big red flag that I don't see the 49ers making the same mistake twice when it comes to, off the field issues with the Alabama player.
And to piggyback off of that, I also saw something, and I forget which source it was, but I saw something, it might have been on Instagram from like a CBS Sports post or something like that said Nick Saban told the media outlet, that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch didn't really speak to him at all at the pro day. They kind of just said hi to each other, and no discussions transpired after that. As far as Mac Jones and his legal issue goes, he has a DUI, and I've been seeing a lot that people are saying he has 2 DUIs. He has 1 DUI, which is totally inexcusable already as it is, and I'm sure that it's something that's going to get brought up. If I was in a position as a general manager or a head coach drafting the quarterback that I think is going to lead my franchise for the next 15 years, that's totally a question I'm asking him. Why did this happen in the first place? What have you learned from it since? It 100% needs to be brought up. And, this past week I was kind of going on Twitter because my whole spiel is that I'm in accurate reporting. You need to be accurate with what you're putting out there. And I was just like, I saw a lot of people saying Mac Jones has 2 DUIs. And I was like, all I was trying to say is just get the facts out. He has 1 DUI, because to me, 1 DUI is not okay, but a second DUI, it's like, oh my God, you've learned nothing. You've learned nothing at all. There's no growth in your actions, and that's extremely worrisome to me. So thank you for correctly stating that he has that 1 DUI. And you're right, with Reuben Foster and what the 49ers have had to dealt with the past, this regime has done such a great job bringing in high character guys that you can trust. And who knows? We don't know Mac Jones personally behind closed doors. His teammates seem to rave about him. Wide receivers have come out and said that he's a better player. I don't recall anything specifically about his leadership, but I know that they said they preferred him over Tua Tagovailoa. So again, regardless of whatever team is drafting Mac Jones, I'm sure they're going to drill him to get to know what happened when he got his DUI his freshman year, what he's learned, what changes he's made in his lifestyle ever since. And that 100% needs to be done. You need to bring that up. It needs to be a discussion.
And more importantly, is that risk of character, is his ability worth that risk of character, or is Justin Fields, who doesn't have any of those character flags, is his play, just as close without those issues? To me, it just makes much more sense on all levels that Fields ends up being the pick.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I haven't, and this was another debate that I was getting on, and these two topic areas are trying to think of another way to phrase this, but basically I was getting in a debate with someone about character concerns and then work ethic concerns. And the two of them, they are very similar, but at the same time, they differ in a way, because when I think of character concerns, I think of the person that you are off the field. Right. Do the team have to worry about you getting drunk or showing up drunk to practice? Which happened during the Jim Harbaugh, Jim Tom Sula days, Chip Kelly. You hear players were getting into crashes or getting pulled over driving 95 miles an hour on the freeway on their way to practice. That's character concerns to me. But the work ethic stuff, and this is kind of trickles into character concerns as well, as the knocks that I've been hearing, and this is just me personally, what I've been hearing about Justin Fields is there was the Dan Orlovsky, I always butcher his last name, but what he was saying about what he was hearing about Justin Fields being this was not him saying, this is just him reiterating what he was hearing about Justin Fields being a type of quarterback that's the first, the last guy in, the first to lead. And to me, that's work ethic. But again, it kind of does go hand in hand with character concerns to an extent. But I'm 100% with you. Mac Jones does have the little blemishes on his record, and that's totally something that is fair to bring up. And
just to kind of reiterate, so we got to also understand that there's a difference between something that's factual and something that is somebody's opinion that has never been heard anywhere in any time and point in history in this guy's career until the draft. So to me, that's more somebody putting something out there to make his draft stock go down, because for whatever reason. But this guy, Justin Fields, has been the consensus number 2 pick since he came out of high school. So this guy's been under a microscope for the last 3 years, maybe. We were just talking about how he's been on Shanahan's camp and all this kind of stuff. So he was, at 17, everybody knew that he was an athlete. He went to Georgia, ended up going to Ohio State. So for there to be no issues with his work ethic till the draft comes out, to me is really suspect. I think there's a narrative that somebody was trying to put out there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Orlovsky, said it, and obviously it brought light to it. But I haven't heard anything from any of his coaches. I haven't heard anybody really jump on that bandwagon and say, that I've been hearing that as well. It really came from that one source, and we don't even know the source. So I don't believe that. I really think that everything I've seen on the field, you don't have a bad work ethic playing with broken ribs and still gutting it out. Yeah. That's if you don't work hard, you don't have the ability to do that. That comes from being healthy. That comes from having a strong mentality. That comes from caring about the game. And usually that isn't somebody that has bad work ethic.
Mm-hmm. And I went back to a tweet that I posted right after the morning after Ohio State played Clemson. And I was still like a full 12, 16 hours later after watching the game, just in disbelief what I saw from Justin Fields, because the way that he battled after taking that hit and getting drilled in the ribs and just being able to pinpoint each ball and just dropping these balls in buckets left and right. From that moment, I was like, this is a franchise quarterback. Right. He looks every part of the franchise quarterback. And now it's just mind-boggling that this is even discussion. Like, Justin Fields looks so good. And this is not a regular season game. This was in the college football playoffs on a huge stage. And to see him battle the way that he did, that's the kind of quarterback that I want on my team. And Kyle Shanahan loves quarterbacks that are tough, that are physically tough, mentally tough. Right. And Justin Fields looks every bit the part to me. So don't overcomplicate everything. Talking to Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, there's no reason to overcomplicate anything. Just go get Justin Fields. That's kind of where I'd like to see everything go. But I want to turn and look ahead. Assuming my mic just dropped. Assuming that a rookie starts this upcoming season, what are realistic expectations for the 49ers?
Playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
I think playoffs, especially with the 7th team making the playoffs. I think the NFC West is the best division in the NFC, and especially with Drew Brees leaving, I think that NFC West is going to put 3 teams into the playoffs. So as long as they're in the top 3 in the West, I think they make it. I don't think they were that far off. I think if we had a starting caliber quarterback that could stay healthy all season last year, I think we would have made the playoffs. We were contending in every single game. It was really a mixture of our running game and more importantly, not having a starting caliber quarterback that could be confident enough to just not lose the game, basically. And I think any of these rookie quarterbacks we're talking about can come in, be eased in. Like Kyle Shanahan has shown he could win a game without a quarterback having to play hero ball. So I think he works this quarterback in, just gives them things that could bring them confidence, maybe make a few plays with their legs here and there. But for the most part, they should be able to, the defense should be strong enough to keep them in the game at all times. And it's really about just not making those plays that make you lose the game. As long as they could keep that to a minimum, I think realistically playoffs is where we should be looking at the team to go.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think this team makes the playoffs even with a rookie starting this upcoming season. And, what was very key in the 2019 playoff run is that they were able to get the first-round bye. And, of course, things have kind of changed since then where they only issue out one first-round bye per conference. You need to be the best team in your conference record-wise to get that bye that first week. And so the 49ers, it's tough to see them making a huge run in the playoffs. If they're carried by their defense again and the run game's humming, who knows? Anything could happen. Maybe this is the first time in NFL history a rookie quarterback leads and wins the Super Bowl. It's not completely out of the question, in my opinion, because there's so much in place already. Right. But again, you gotta have realistic expectations for your rookie coming in. But I definitely think the playoffs are fair. I would be shocked if this team didn't make the playoffs with a rookie quarterback, because I have a lot of confidence in the pieces around the team. You have your offensive line looks pretty solid after free agency. You're able to bring back Trent Williams. You added Alex Mack. If Deebo Samuel can stay healthy, he is so important to the 49ers offense. You need Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson to string together a 14, 15, 16 games or 17 games this year. If they can play 15 games or more, that's great. So much of the success relies on the health of the team, and that kind of goes unsaid. And the defense looks good too. Dee Ford is out there moving around. It's still kind of up in the air whether or not he'll be able to contribute in 2021. But if this team is in a position again where their defense and their pass rush is really the driving force of the team, and the run game looks good, and this rookie quarterback that steps in can play a couple notches higher of the worst quarterback play we've seen last year with Nick Mullins and CJ, because I'm right there with you. If this team had more stable and steady quarterback play last year, they'd be in the playoffs. They'd be in the playoffs. They had an opportunity up until week 13, week 14, when they played the Washington football team and the Cowboys, and they kind of butchered those two games. And then they came alive to beat the Cardinals, and they almost upset the Seahawks week 17. So I definitely think the playoffs are realistic with the rookie. But I want to sprinkle in some Jimmy Garoppolo talk here, because this is where I'm at is if you keep Jimmy Garoppolo around, you have more favorable odds to get into the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. It just logically makes sense. Garoppolo was your quarterback in 2019. He made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. Therefore, he has a better chance of leading you to the Super Bowl than a rookie that's just stepping onto the field and taking his first NFL snap. That's where I kind of see things. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Garoppolo should be the starting quarterback. I would like the team to keep Garoppolo. I don't think you need to move on from him right now. And this is something we discussed, so I'm looking forward to this discussion again. But the way that I see it is Jimmy Garoppolo is you have $20 million in cap space, and you look at what else needs to be done. You can extend Fred Warner. Laken Tomlinson needs an extension, but the huge wave of free agency is already over. I don't see what's more valuable than having a second competent quarterback in the building. I think that's more valuable than clearing up an additional $24 million in cap space, whatever it would be. So I would like to see the team hold on to Jimmy Garoppolo unless they're absolutely wowed by an offer. And by wowed by an offer, I think you try to get a first-round pick for him, or you just got to get an offer you simply can't say no to. Right. And if you don't get that offer, I would like to see Garoppolo and this rookie compete for it, And I know some people, they just want to hand the keys to the franchise to the rookie because you trade all this draft capital for him, just rip off the Garoppolo Band-Aid. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that either. But my whole mindset is the goal every single year is to win a Super Bowl. I'm 25. I have not seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl my entire lifetime. And I thought it was going to be in 2012. Then I thought it was going to be in 2019. I said, the revenge tour. Okay, this is the time. Let's go capitalize now. So the name of the game is to win the Super Bowl, right? And keeping Garoppolo around and having that fair competition, maybe he's just a backup to this rookie. He'd be an expensive backup, but at least if he goes through serious growing pains, which could get ugly because you might have a Tua Tagovailoa situation, which I was not a fan of whatsoever, where he was getting benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick, which was the right thing to do. But you don't want to have that back and forth with your rookie. But it would more so be in the event that the rookie gets hurt, unless it's like an absolute big game, playoffs are on the line. I don't see them pulling the rookie for Garoppolo, but I really would like to see him stick around in 2021, just because after seeing what happened last year when Garoppolo went down and the quarterbacks behind him, because look who's going to be behind this rookie. If for
Josh someone Rosen, baby.
Exactly, So I
Nate
like
Sudfeld.
Or Josh Johnson.
They just picked up. I don't know if you saw that. They just picked up Nate Sudfeld.
Oh yeah, I saw. I saw. I don't have much to say on.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So, if we were able to get the same type of compensation Jets got for Darnold, how would you feel about that?
No, I wouldn't do it. I really wouldn't do it. And I kind of see this scenario that a lot of other people aren't really talking about, where let's say this rookie comes into camp and he's just absolutely not ready to go. So you have Garoppolo there, and maybe he does need to learn for a year. And after the success that we saw from Justin Herbert last year, recency bias, a lot of people are saying, okay, quarterbacks are just ready to go right now. And some of them are, some of them aren't, some of them aren't. And a scenario that I see, I can see Garoppolo, and even numbers aside, I can see him leading the 49ers to another very successful season and boosting his trade value. There's people out there that are saying this is the best his trade value is ever going to be while he's with the 49ers. And yes, you may be right if he never plays again, but I still see a scenario where he might be around next year and maybe he is a team starting quarterback. And they don't need to make a move. They don't need to. And until they have that offer that you can't say no to, you hold on to him. And to go back to the Darnold compensation, what was it? This, I guess, 6 this year and then a second rounder next year.
So I think they ended up getting around 3 picks for him. So yeah, they got a second and they got another pick, a future pick as well.
And that's definitely interesting because
you got to understand we don't have as much draft capital moving forward.
No, I know. And another thing that I've been thinking about a lot when thinking about the 49ers and the 9 picks that they have this year, I don't think there's room for 9 rookies. So what they're likely to do is they're going to either trade up and use this year's draft capital to maybe move back up in the first round like they've done twice. We've seen this regime do it twice. They did it with they had the 2 first-round picks last year,
right,
but they moved up higher with their own pick to get Brandon Ayuk, and they did it in 2017. They traded back up to get Reuben Foster into the first round. And so maybe they already intend on trading their second and third round pick this year, maybe moving up, but it would be wise, to your point, to trade down or to get future draft assets for a player like Garoppolo. I really do. This is something where I totally see both sides. There's not really a right.
Hey, we're turning you, Nick.
Okay. This is kind of where I've always stood with this issue. Is my personal preference is to keep Garoppolo because he brings more value. Having that quarterback that's been through the ringer, that's played in the Super Bowl, brings more valuable than getting like a 4th round pick or whatever may potentially come that way, may transpire, opposed to what we were talking about earlier and getting those future assets. That's just kind of where I'm at. But I totally get both sides. I know why Garoppolo could be moved on from. I know what it could potentially do in the locker room. I really, truly see both sides in this. But just my preference is, unless you're wowed by an offer, hold on to him because there's no reason to move on. What's your take?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you are a glass half full type of person. And I think you have an amazing ability to see the positive in a negative situation, which, you know what, Nick? I don't even want to ruin, my guy. I want you to stay that way because that smile is beautiful.
Hey.
It's great community, so keep it going, right?
Hey.
But as far as I personally, my reason for trading Garoppolo and why I think it's a necessity has nothing to do with how much it's going to save on the cap, because you make an excellent point. It's not really going to affect it that much. They're not going to go spend $20 million on anybody this offseason. It'll just be, turned into next season, which they were already going to get that anyways because they're not going to keep him on the team next year. But I have a few reasons. One, I have no faith that Garoppolo is going to either, one, stay healthy for a whole season, or two, play healthy this season, because we don't know what he looks like after his injury. You know what I mean? So, the reason why I think this is the highest we'll ever be able to draft him is because next year, no matter how good he is, we know we're not going to stick with him. So there's nothing that a team would we have to cut him. So why would you give up anything for him next season, knowing that this isn't going to be a guy that you're moving forward with, right? So this is the highest that we're ever going to be. It can only go down from here. Even if he has a great season, takes us to the Super Bowl, we're either going to have to re-sign him and trade. You can't trade him at that point. You know what I mean?
Oh, so, well, this is what I'm thinking. If you do have a successful year from him, other teams are going to be in the market for a quarterback. And if he goes to the Super Bowl, that increases his value. So he'll have 1 year left on his contract at the end of this upcoming season. And I could really see a team like the Chicago Bears or the Patriots or the Washington football team, if they don't get their quarterback in this draft and Garoppolo really does have a strong season, because I do not want him on the team after this year. You have to give the rookie the full reins of the franchise, the key to the Lamborghini, however you want to phrase it. You have to give it to him by year 2. You have to. So
what quarterback have you seen it be successful where they take a team? So you could look at like Nick Foles, right? So yeah. Nick Foles ended up going to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles. They traded him. What happened with that QB situation with the Eagles?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but it's also at the same time, like, there's not a lot of situations that are comparable to the best of my knowledge, because when has a team gone to the Super Bowl and then the following year had the 3rd overall pick in the draft? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so funky with what's kind of gone down with the 49ers.
But we can talk about relatable in the sense of why I think that it wouldn't work, even in your best case scenario. And what I mean by that is people in the locker room, that they're real human beings, right? And people in the locker room want to win, right? And so we have a very unique offseason where everybody on our team seems to be on a 1-year deal, except for like 3 people. You know what I mean? So like everybody's on a 1-year deal. So I think that Garoppolo having a lot of success, and I think the max that we're going to do with Garoppolo, the best we could do with him is get to the playoffs, because I don't think that we can just hand the ball off 8 times and go to another Super Bowl the way that we did in 2019 with him, right? Because we don't have the same running game. We don't have the same opponents. I think the NFC is better than they were in 2019 with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and, you know, all the teams that are there now. I think the NFC West is better. So like the chances, I think how the team's going to do is going to be the same, whether it's a rookie quarterback or whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think there's that much better elevation of play that Garoppolo is going to have. So if it's going to be, even if Garoppolo is a little bit better, what would you feel like would be better for the morale of the team, morale of your future, and morale of your rookie quarterback? Him making it to the playoffs and then them losing in the first round, or Garoppolo making it to the second round and the 49ers flame out, right? Yeah. It's not that big, but as far as the future of the team, it's so much better if the rookie takes them, because one, they're the leader in that locker room. All the team, there's no second guessing who is the starting quarterback. There's not half of the team that's like, hey, we could be better with Garoppolo. Half of the team saying, nah, this rookie is who we really need to go with. And number 3, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is as beloved as he used to be. I think what he did this last offseason or this last year with not coming back with his ankle injury, I think that rubbed a lot of the teammates the wrong way. And I think it's the right time to just make a clean split, get whatever you can for him, and let's turn the reins over, because all that's going to happen is the same. Like we already know what Garoppolo is going to give us. We already know what the ceiling is with Garoppolo. It's going to be, we're going to win, but we're not going to be one of the best teams with him. We weren't the best team because of Garoppolo. We were the best team because of that defense, because of that running game, and because of Kyle Shanahan's ability to scheme plays up. It was never because of Garoppolo. He gets a lot of credit because obviously we've won ever since we've with them, but I don't think it's because of Garoppolo. He's just that much better than anybody else we have on the team. And that's not going to be the same when we have this 3rd round draft pick. And that's where I think things are different.
And you raise great points as far as the divide, keeping Garoppolo and then having that rookie at your rookie that you're selecting third overall in the locker room, because it could create a divide and a difference in opinion in the locker room. And the 49ers locker room has been so tight over the years that, you know, maybe this is something you just like to avoid in its entirety. And it's totally why I get the reason of wanting to, or the rationale behind ripping off the Band-Aid and just simply moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo, because we've seen enough. So,
yeah,
you know,
because we used to be going from Jimmy Garoppolo to Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo to CJ Beathard. So obviously we're like, stick with Jimmy. But if we're going to Jimmy to Garoppolo to Justin Fields, like that you're more excited to see Justin Fields than Jimmy Garoppolo, whether you want to admit it or not right now, Nick.
Oh, of course. Of course. No. From an excitement factor, come on.
So like, why would we? So why not just give him that? I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is a good backup quarterback. His mentality is all messed up. Think about it. He went to New England. He was supposed to be the man there. Tom Brady had him shit. He came to San Francisco. He thought he was going to be the man here. And all the 49ers have done is try to trade him every single season, or like try to bring in his replacement, all this kind of stuff. He needs to play for a team that he could earn his next contract at. And if that's not going to be the 49ers, which it's not going to be, I don't think, because they're going to try to get Justin Fields in as soon as he's ready, he needs to just go somewhere else. And him being so quiet scares me, because what kind of person can be this quiet this long, being treated the way that us as 49ers fans have treated him, the 49ers organization has treated him? Like, he can't be happy. There's no shot he could be happy. It's just the fact that he's making $27 million. He's not making that anywhere else. That's the only reason why he's being quiet. But if he could get traded, I say trade him, and let's just start the new era.
Sheesh, you made so many great points right there. I don't even know where to start. But that's one of the biggest cons I have of Garoppolo. And don't get his teammates all say that he's a great leader. I just view him as being so cool.
I think only Kittle says it. Kittle's the only person that talks about him.
Yeah,
everybody else doesn't talk about him.
Yeah, just his lack of emotion that you see. We saw it in spurts in 2019 with the feels great baby, and as you could tell, his confidence was just humming right there, and he was roaring, feeling himself, doing what he needed to do on the football field. But when you see Tom Brady, he was Tom Brady's understudy for several years, and just how Brady demands excellence from his teammates, and he gets fired up on the sidelines. And you just don't really see that from Garoppolo, where he kind of seems passive. And how could you be okay with your franchise bringing in Tom Brady or thinking about bringing in Tom Brady? And you hear all these things just going on over the years, how the 49ers are constantly looking to upgrade at quarterback. And what I will say is I don't think that this is a healthy environment for Jimmy Garoppolo. It's within his best interest to start new elsewhere. Of course, he has the no trade clause in his contract. But it's tough. This is not a good place for him, because you can tell Kyle Shanahan's kind of over him. It's John Lynch really pushing the narrative that we want Jimmy Garoppolo here. Kyle Shanahan reiterates it. Does he really truly believe that? Who knows? It's all speculation. I've said my piece. I would not mind seeing Jimmy Garoppolo on this team, but you brought up great points about how it could potentially create a divide in the locker room, how the ceilings between a rookie and Jimmy Garoppolo as far as the immediate future this upcoming season, it's not a huge difference. So why not just rock out with the rookie? And I do think it's important to get that rookie on the field as early as possible, because the more experience that they gain, the better they're going to be, right? It's just take Garoppolo, for example. He has one full season as a 16-game starter, and you need that on the field experience. It just makes you better. You get better through experience. So that's another reason why just throwing this rookie into the fire could pay dividends, because he's just going to be better the following season. He's going to be familiar with defensive looks and coverages, and he's just gone through it. Let's wrap things up with non-quarterback. How about we went quarterback talk for a straight 63 minutes. This is not a popular discussion right now, because with everything's quarterback related. Right. But people are still interested in this, and I'm interested to talk about it. What should the 49ers go after the draft? So they're going to get their quarterback, obviously, third overall. What position or positions should they look to address later on in the draft?
So I've been pretty clear on this. I think the biggest weakness on the team is their running game. And I think it's the most important aspect of Kyle Shanahan's offense, even more than quarterback, is that running game. And I think we have really good running backs as far as Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., but neither of them are starting running backs. And in 2019, we were ranked number 2 in rushing, averaging about 145 yards per game. Last year, we ranked 15th with averaging like right over like about 40 yards less per game than the year before. And it was because obviously Mostert, Wilson Jr., they couldn't stay healthy, and neither could Tevin Coleman. And Jerick McKinnon wasn't the type of bell cow that we needed, right? So in 2019, we had Coleman, Breida, Mostert, right? Tevin Coleman was there. He did all the pass protection. He was starting the game. He had the most handoffs in the game. And then Breida and Mostert would come in, touch the ball 8 times, but then have like 100 yards and a touchdown like every single game, right? Coming in as a change of pace back. And I think that aspect of our running game was missing last season because we tried to put Mostert in that one, and he can't pass protect the way that we need him to, and he can't be his same type of player if he's taking all of those hits that the lead back should take. And the problem with it is I think the 49ers need to draft somebody with their second-round pick because there's only, I think, 3 or 4 guys in this draft that could really come in and make a difference as far as that lead back. And I think it's probably the most imperative thing because whether you start Garoppolo or you start a rookie, that running game is going to be what's the most important aspect because it takes all the pressure off. If we don't have a running game, they're going to be seeing, 7-man fronts. They're going to be seeing, they're going to be seeing everybody go under protection. It's going to be hard for them to really open up the field. So I think that running back is like the number one. Everything else, like I think it's a deep cornerback draft. I think, they could get somebody in the 3rd round with either their, 102 or their, 117 pick or whatever. And I think like defense, I think Kostrick has shown that he could do really great things with late round defensive ends. So I think the high draft capital needs to be running back this draft.
Mm-hmm. Good points. And I liked your assessment of Raheem Mostert. I don't like him in the lead back role either. I really want to see him in that 2019 role where he's kind of just getting the ball 8-9 times a game and he's not playing, 40-50% of the offensive snaps, just a little bit of a dip there. I'm high on Jeff Wilson Jr. I'd like to see him in a full-time role. He looked real good last year. I'm not as high as taking a running back second overall because I think you get the second round, because you get a little more value. But I totally get what you're saying because the run game is so important and vital. And you look at the carousel of running backs that you laid out in 2019 between Coleman and Breida and Mostert, and then you had a young Jeff Wilson Jr. in the mix back then. You definitely got to get a couple more bodies there, and maybe there's a couple guys deep in the draft because the running back position in particular, I always feel there's a guy in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round, 7th round that you find that star of the draft, the Alvin Kamara, or Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, guys, solid depth piece guys. But it sounds like you kind of more want that pound for pound workhorse back. And if that's
think about if Kyle Shanahan had Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Think about if Kyle Shanahan had Alvin Kamara or had Aaron Jones, right? I think I saw Vish talk about this. Is like there's this negative connotation to picking a running back high because they flame out very, very quickly, right? Yeah, but the problem is not you pick a running back high, maximize them, and you just don't give them that second contract. You let them walk, right? The problem is if you give them that second contract where you're overpaying and now they're on their downhill. But if we had Josh Jacobs, if we had like my favorite running back in this draft is Najee Harris. If there's any way we could if he ends up falling and we could jump back up and pick up Najee Harris, can you imagine Justin Fields and Najee being in our offense? Oh my God, that offense would be ridiculous. Yeah. And I think that I think Kyle Shanahan realizes that too, and I think he is going to pick a running back either in the second or third round. And I think it's going to pay dividends because that running game needs to be top 5 for us to have any shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, that the running game needs to be one of the best in the league for this team to really have a successful season and make the playoffs with their rookie quarterback, if that's the route they decide to go. Get rid of Garoppolo, plug in that rookie. A couple areas that I think they should look to address. They're pretty set on offense. Of course, they could use that pound-for-pound workhorse back. They need a slot receiver. I don't think those needs are as pressing. They kind of have this luxury right now where they can go best player available in rounds 2 and in round 3.
Right.
And I'd like to see them try to find a right guard at some point. Dan Brunskill's kind of the projected starter right now. And it just seems like the right guard has been a revolving door for the last several years. For a very long time, you had all these guys just walk in, Mike Person, and you had Dan Brunskill bouncing around right guard last year. It just seems like it's been forever since there's been any stability at right guard. So maybe you look at a guy like Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State in round 2. And then the cornerback position, you're set at cornerback this year to an extent. Jason Verrett has those injury concerns, and you don't have a lot of outside corners that I'd be comfortable with right now. So maybe I think they'll definitely draft the cornerback in this draft before round 3 because Verrett, K'Wan Williams, they're on one-year deals. They really have to prove it this year. They can stay on the field, both of them this time. Emmanuel Mosley coming back on a 2-year deal. I really like him. And then you look at the edge rushing position. I think they need more speed, even with the addition of Samson Ebukam. And you have Nick Bosa coming back. We'll see what happens with D4. But you can just never go wrong with having a deep defensive line and guys that can bolster your pass rush, get after the quarterback. So those are the areas that I would look at. But, again, the 49ers have to be feeling good. They traded up to get the 3rd overall pick, and they still have their 2nd and 3rd round pick in this year's draft. It's crazy. It's mind-blowing to me how they
have 2 third rounds, right?
They got rid of the one from Trent Williams in the trade last year, and then they got the compensatory pick for Robert Saleh leading, so I believe it's only one. But there was a misreport initially. What had happened when they sent out the compensatory picks, they gave the 49ers 2 of them in the 3rd round when it was only supposed to be 1. So they took back that 1 3rd round pick, but it was initially reported that they were going to have 2 3rd round picks, but that ended up being incorrect. So that's kind of how I see things going. They're going to get their quarterback at 3, and then you could make an argument for wide receiver. You can make an argument for running back, right guard, cornerback, defensive end, that speed rusher, kind of outside linebacker, defensive end, the hybrid guy that can get after the quarterback.
I just feel like receiver Richie James, I think, is going to be a great 3rd option, and then I think that 49ers just do a really great job with lower end, like 5th round, 6th round, 7th round defensive ends. I think it has to be running back and then secondary. But then again, the thing I always like secondary wise, for some reason they're able to find people that they could pay $5-6 million a year with that are really solid. And I think there's those guys that are late 20s, early 30s that still have 1 or 2 years in them. And they've just been able to rotate these guys in and still keep the secondary pretty straight. So I don't know. I'm big on them picking a running back. I think that's imperative.
If you want to talk about excitement, having a rookie quarterback, a rookie running back in your first 2 picks, that would be exciting. And we're pushing, hour and 15 here. Suneil, I'm going to let you go. We've been at it for a while now, but this was great. I appreciate you coming on the pod. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you with All 49ers Sports Illustrated and doing the live shows with Grant. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, of course.